In June of 1990, Heinrich and Jana Mueller flew with their children to South Los Angeles, filled with excitement about the prospect of life in America. Jana Slaninia and Heinrich Mueller had been neighbors and schoolmates in East Berlin. They grew up together and married in January of 1985. Their first child, Fritz, was born on November 5th in the same year. Adela, their next child, did not come until March 15th, 1989, and so they called her the Wunderchen, or Little Miracle Baby. Like many in the German Democratic Republic, they never thought that they would escape the oppressive regime of the GDR. However, after the fall of communism, new opportunities arose. The Muellers had left Germany in the excitement of the fall of the Berlin Wall and the birth of their daughter, and they made the decision to move to one of the most famous cities in the West. They were anxious to experience new freedoms after leaving the GDR, and to take advantage of their new ability to travel to non-communist countries. However, once they began to settle in their new home, their idealistic expectations went sadly unmet.
It just happened that way. It was unfortunate. They picked the most beautiful state, but the most dangerous part. Likely, it was that they could not afford a better part.
My father was once admonished by a policeman for having a handgun so easily accessible in the house with 3 young children. My father said to him, "This is South Central," and he nodded his head and left.
South Los Angeles was a dangerous neighborhood, especially for children, and especially for people with light skin. The Muellers encountered high racial tensions among the black, white, and Hispanic residents of South Central, and found these new racial and cultural landscapes not only confusing, but frightening. They faced 2 language barriers, English and Spanish. They knew a small amount of English, but relied largely on Fritz and Adele to aid them. Fritz struggled with English, however, and favored an affiliation with his Spanish-speaking neighbors.
I mostly hung out with your brother, and his friends were all Mexican, so we conversed mostly in Spanish. I was comfortable only with Spanish and with German, which my parents spoke with me.
The Muellers tried initially to live their family life as if they were still in Germany. Only German was spoken among their family members, and maps and photographs from Berlin adorned their small apartment. Their excitement about a new life in America quickly wore off, replaced by a desire for the old East Germany, but they could not afford to return. In March of 1992, the Muellers had a son, Albert. He was only 2 months old when the infamous Los Angeles riots erupted, centered largely in South Los Angeles.
I don't remember much, of course. I was only 2 years old, and Fritz was 6, I think, and Albrecht had just been born, but I know my parents were terrified. Everyone was upset already, because no one had any money or safety, but after the court ruling, everyone became mad against white people, even though we were German. It was an awful, scary time for our parents. They did not quite understand why we were suddenly some targets, when before they could hide, mostly.
The Muellers moved to Fountain Valley after their apartment burned down in an unrelated accident. They lived there under slightly better economic conditions until 2003, when they could finally afford to move back to Germany.
We returned to Germany when I was 13. It must have been in April, because it was Albrecht's birthday right before this. We went to an outside part of Frankfurt rather than to Berlin, because my mother has family there now. It was strange to suddenly... Everyone was now the same color and spoke the same language. It was very boring. I was glad to be in a safer place, but ever since then, I have been anxious to get to see the rest of the world, to find other interesting places where no one is just like me.
Everyone was happy about returning to Germany. I didn't really like Frankfurt, though. I didn't belong in California, but I didn't belong in Frankfurt either. I should be able to find somewhere I belong already. Russia is alright, but I need to move on and try again.
Fritz's experiences as an immigrant left him confused about his identity, but Adela's gave her a desire to explore the world and all the different cultures it contains.